So the next several slides I've drawn up so you can see the complexity of nested warming and cooling periods over Earth's global history. So on this graph, I want you to recognize a couple of things. I've got temperature along this x-axis and I've got time on the y-axis. So 0 time through to 5 billion years, and then 450 through to 0 degrees in Celsius. All right, so we went from a very warm planet 4.5 billion years ago when we were just starting to solidify and form through, as time goes on towards today, the temperature starts to drop. So we are functionally on a cooling planet. So when you are sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, the next time we can all get together for dinner, and you've got a family member saying the climate is not warming, you can say, you're right, we are on a cooling planet, because functionally we are on a cooling planet. I'm going to take this red line and I'm going to make it blue on this next slide. This is the planetary average, all right? The mean temperature over time, all right, is a steady cooling planet. But what we see are oscillations of warming and cooling over that time period. So when the temperature is above the average mean, we are in an inter-ice age. Inter meaning between. Here are our ice age periods below this average temperature. So ice age, ice age, ice age, inter ice age, inter ice age, inter ice age, inter ice age. So what we're seeing is we have come out of an ice age. We're now then coming back. If this is today, right here at the bottom here, and we're in a cooling planet, we're warming. We're coming back up out of here. So we're oscillating. Warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool. All right. The climate has lasted, the ice ages, I should say, have lasted anywhere from 1 billion years in collective time through to about 2.7 million years. So ice ages are a significant part of Earth's history, all right? Even when the Earth was warmer. We had an ice age when the Earth was functionally warm, all right, guys? I want you to recognize that that is a condition that exists. Add to that, within ice ages, remember that the ice ages and the inter-ice ages are the red line. The blue line now are glacial and interglacial periods. These are periods of time where we've got glacial advance or glacial retreat on our planet. These are warmer and cooler periods as well, and they can last 40,000 years or so, right? So we are warming and cooling like a lace over top of an ice age and inter-ice age period. So we can have warming on top of a warming period, and we can have cooling on top of a warm period. Likewise, we can have warming in a cool period in an ice age period, and we can have even a colder period within an ice age. All right, so it gets really fancy and complicated. All right, so we've gone from hundreds of millions of years for the ice ages and inter-ice ages to tens of thousands of years in duration for interglacial. Now, inter is between glacial ice advances and glacial periods. All right. Now, I had said earlier that we're just coming out of a glacial period, right? It's been 10,000 years that we had a glacial advance, and now we're warming out of that. So we're warming out of an ice age. And we're still in an ice age period, by the way, folks. Our planet's in an ice age, and so we're warming out of it, and we're warming out of a glacial period right now. So we've kind of got double warming happening. Sounds like double rainbow from that video a few years ago. Add to that this sort of mustard gold color. So we weave a warming period and a cooling period over and under the glacial and interglacial periods, all right? And these can last hundreds of years. And this stadia, or this new trend line then can be a few hundred years old, can be a couple thousand years old. This could be the little ice age that we saw glacial advance happening. This could be a warming period, similar to the warming period that we saw at the end of the Roman advance and the advancement of the Huns across Asia. So these warming and cooling periods then really predicate what's going to be happening for human timescales. These are going to affect agriculture. They're going to affect advancement of culture and society. It can tip the scales in favor of one culture and tip the scales against another culture. So, for instance, the warming period at the end of the Roman period was really, what it did was it stretched the resources of the Roman Empire. It was too warm for them. They weren't doing well. Alongside all of the other political things that were happening with the Romans and their empire, was the climate was not in their favor. The agriculture was not going to feed Rome. It wasn't going to feed all of those Roman citizens across all of these different landscapes. And so the climate basically starts to erode that culture from the edges inward, and it is in favor of the Huns, who are a horse culture, and horses do well in warmer landscapes. So there is that. Add to that, I should have another little color here, but it's not coming through. Add to that, if you could imagine the lace of the green, lace in another color. Let's lace in yellow, the same way we laced over top, and that could last decades, for instance. So we have the warming period over the 1930s. The 1930s and 40s were warm. The 50s and 60s through the 70s were a little bit cooler. The 80s were warm again. The 90s were cool. The 2000s into towards 2020 were warm again. So we've got 10, 20 years of warming, cooling, and then it gets really complicated. So you have a warming period inside a warming period inside a cooling period. Essentially, I said we were coming out of a glacial period, which was also coming out of an ice age period, but we were warming out of the little ice age, and then we had these tens of years of warming and cooling. So the question is, when we start to look at climate change and we say, oh, what's the big deal? Like, we're in an ice age or we're in an interglacial period. Why is everybody worried? Those periods of time last hundreds and hundreds of years, and vegetation, plants and animals that are in their natural habitats, and the plant and animal vegetation and agricultural systems can adapt genetically over those periods of time. It's tens of years and hundreds of years. If there is changes in those smaller cycles, then society has to react to them, and they have to be more proactive if we're going to succeed as nation states and succeed economically, culturally, and in terms of societal norms and ethics. So that becomes the rub, is what are we going to do on these short-term cycles? Is a warming climate that may be produced by humans making 10 or 20 years worse? Do you want to be in your 30s and 40s trying to raise a family in a temperature that we're not thinking about managing better? We can't manage the ice ages and we can't manage the inter-ice ages, but how do we adapt for the smaller time periods? And that's the question that I want to put forward to you.